You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
Not Sarah Gulsa.
No.
Sarah's out today. She'll be back with us soon enough. Don't fear. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for your support of The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, the Reverend Marcus Zill, campus pastor for LCMSU, Arizona. Welcome to The Coffee Hour, Pastor Zill.
Sorry about that. I'm having flashbacks to my time hosting the student union. If anybody remembers that on the air, we had about five years. Doing great. I love it. I'm Andy Bates, and I'm not Sarah Gulsa. What's that introduction? That's great. No, glad to be with you here. It's the first day of school down here at the University of Arizona, and lots of people are starting school anywhere. It's great to talk to you.
Well, we are excited to have some time to chat with you. Things have changed a little bit for you. You are back in campus ministry, like knee deep, waist deep in it. I don't know. How deep are you in campus ministry? You're at LCMSU, Arizona these days.
Well, I would say it's more or less armpit deep.
Okay.
But yeah, to help everybody understand, the last 6 to 9 months or something like that, I have moved down to Tucson, Arizona. I'm half-time as the campus pastor at the University of Arizona, which is in kind of a unique transition at the moment. So it's a kind of a real challenge, but I embrace it. And also still working a little bit on the side, doing some contract work for the Office of National Mission in relationship to some campus ministry resources and various things. Like that as kind of being a resource person for them still for the area since they no longer have a director of campus ministry. And just getting close to perhaps by the time this airs, may also be more than another half being a vacancy pastor down here. So I just came down here to collect hats. That's what I do. But the primary one and the one that is kind of the driving force for why I'm here and what I'm doing is, like many of our campus pastors and other campus ministries workers out there, trying to navigate this whole post-COVID or current COVID world, whichever it is, or both, as it affects academia and its changing landscape. And as we try to everybody's trying to kind of get back on board this fall after kind of having a weird year in terms of academia last year. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And it feels great. Campus ministry is in my blood. It's what I do. It's probably all I'll ever really do. And that's okay with me because I always say I just love college students.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm remembering my college days and all the challenges when I was in college. And I'm just thinking, man, last year must have compounded some of those challenges. Can you speak to what it was like doing campus ministry over the past year and what you foresee the challenges are going to be coming back into campus learning?
Well, I can't talk completely from firsthand experience because I was kind of in transition in the middle of this last year. But I can tell you that on most campuses, most of us in doing campus ministry couldn't get on campus. RSO, recognized student organizations, are really a main way that many of our campus ministries utilize them to gain access to campus. Of course, every college is different, but in general, many of those activities were curbed or even canceled, or if they were allowed to exist at some schools, were moved off campus. So access to students, nobody on campus unless your actual staff, etc., certainly couldn't be anywhere near the dorm rooms, although it's been 10 years or so. It's kind of hard for anybody to crack through that one. But libraries were closed, almost anything. And many of the students just went home.
Right.
So I showed up and, I'm like, hey, happy to get together with all the students. They're like, well, they're all they're all in their moms and dads' basements back in Phoenix or Utah or wherever they're from. And they're not necessarily around. So that's kind of the mishmash that was inherited. And of course, everybody has developed just Zoomophobia.
Right.
Because they're so tired of of online learning and this, that, and the other thing. And the one kind of hopeful thing for many of our campuses this fall, though there's still plenty of challenges, trust me, is that they're coming back. They're moving into the dorms. It's a little bit different, but yeah, they're moving into the dorms, and there's going to be the semblance of kind of a community on campus, but there's still plenty of restrictions and lots of really frankly, campus ministry is going to have to rethink some things in terms of how we typically reach out to students on campus. I'll give you this one idea. One thing that's changed. I can't speak to everywhere, but I will. Basically, the day used to be that many of our universities would have these like early June, maybe into July, online, in-person orientation fairs that might last a day and a half, 2 days. And you came in, there were 8 to 10 of them. All the student organizations could set up their little table, and they would kind of try to push the students around to make sure they were overwhelmed by the number of different student organizations, while they had kind of their collective onboarding, rah-rah, welcome to the university experience. Well, last year, those got killed. So pretty much this summer, most of the universities that I've seen, and at least here in Tucson, they basically reduced that to online. Well, you can't push people to the RSOs if everything's online.
Right.
And they've already decided here that they're not going to do it anything but online next year, even though that's like 11 months away. And so I'm thinking maybe they figured out how to save money because universities are taking a hit. And so that's a radical change. We have to think through this landscape. How do we, as those that are interested in finding students, especially those that are of our own tribe here in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, how do we connect with them, especially the ones that shouldn't be that hard to find up front, at least at first? Because there's going to have to be new ways to do this, or we're going to have to double down on making sure that we are very, very aggressive with our congregations and reaching out to them and just saying, look, we need help from you. We can't let this slide through the cracks.
Right.
Because we don't have the access. Back 30 years ago, the universities used to show up at your front door and hand you this golden plate of all these names of anybody that checked the box that said they're Lutheran. And they would say, we're sorry, we're a day late showing up to you after school starts to hand you this list.
Right.
Those days have been gone for 25 years. But in the end, the days now, the second round is that we don't have these orientation onboarding experiences because they're really limiting those types of things.
You mentioned earlier, for example, students moving on campus and having a sense of community. How does that sense of community and campus life make a difference for a student during this stage in life during their college years? How does that sense of community impact?
I'll just tell you that it's huge. And, community can be good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
We can all get ourselves involved in good and bad communities. For a lot of our students, this has been a year of really, especially if you're like a sophomore this year, you like graduated from high school right as COVID was starting and basically missed a year of what was supposed to be the greatest transition of your life. And you don't even know what college was like before COVID.
Right.
And so, but you've been sitting at home, online classes, not going anywhere, not seeing friends as much as you might have before. And so, the anxiety level is very high among a lot of students. Most people maybe realize that our college students are among some of the most depressed and anxious statistically in terms of society. It's just off the charts, the level of anxiety that there can be. And so this has certainly increased that. And I really think that idea of being together in the dorm room, on campus, like seeing people we all have missed it. But in reality, for us in the church, this should be our greatest moment for all local congregations out there to not think, well, how can we be welcoming to young people that show up at our church and encouraging them to come, and what do we say to them? And my response is just be you. They're going to be thrilled to have that sense of community, not just the kind of community that we talk about in terms of as the body of Christ and gathered around Christ's gifts, which of course these students sorely need. But we just need to be church and get back to it, and get back to meeting together and finding ways to kind of have, that real presence with one another in terms of just sitting down. I had coffee with a couple of students over the weekend. Maybe that's why I'm all hyped up today. I've had a lot of coffee. This is the coffee hour though, right?
It is.
I've been preparing all weekend because I have a lot of coffee. Turns out students are drinking a lot of coffee these days, because I'm always like, hey, you a coffee drinker? It's on me. Well, I've been drinking a lot of coffee, which is fine. But for those that have known me before, I'm fairly I come pre-caffeinated. So, but the bottom line is, I can't tell you how they all kind of look at me and say, man, it's great to just sit down and talk to another human being about anything in person, and dialogue and communicate, and not just so I think that's a real opportunity that's for us, that's for all of us in campus ministry, and everybody just at a regular church. Just understand that just be welcoming, show students that you care, and just be ready to do the simple things that you do with anybody else, asking people over for dinner if that's cool. I don't know the COVID mask rules or whatever anywhere. But little things like that go a long way. That the level of hospitality is really a helpful thing right now, because people have missed getting together to play cards or chess or just little things. We've all got used to watching, streaming everything, but we really long to be together. And, the scriptures make it very clear that, we can't get out of the habit of meeting together, meeting mostly around the gifts of God, but some of those gifts are also us. And so there are plenty of challenges reaching out to students. But one of the things that I'm incorporating in what I'm trying to do right now with kind of the onboarding experience that they're having, and my situation's a little unique, we're almost kind of starting from scratch, is that I'm just trying to get together with them and be social. I normally don't stress the social. I don't have a building or anything at the moment, so I'm just kind of taking it easy, and we're building this thing. And if there's one thing I'm not going to do, I'm not going to end up not finding these young people and making sure that they know that I care. And I think that's the number one thing that we can do, and then to draw them into the various things that we can do for them together.
We're talking with Reverend Marcus Zill, campus pastor at LCMSU, Arizona. We have more to learn about back to school with our college students this year with Pastor Zill. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
Today we're talking with the Reverend Marcus Zill, campus pastor for LCMSU, Arizona. And I'm a little envious because I bet, Pastor Zill, you're in a region where, as it starts to cool off, you have lots of open air sites where you can just meet like outside or in a nice pavilion with your students, aren't you, there in Arizona?
Well, yeah, I will tell you though that we have had nothing but rain in the last 2 months. This is one of the wettest monsoon season here in history, which is crazy. Out in California, they got all these fires. We've had we get about 11 inches of rain a year. out here, and we've gotten about maybe 12 inches in the last couple of months. But kind of, fortunately, that's when the students aren't around in the summer. But yeah, there's weather is not an issue here through the majority of the academic year. There's no doubt about that. You can pretty much do everything outside and then not have to worry about it at all.
That's cool. I've got some,
Okay.
yeah, I've got some questions about campus ministry in general. I've done a lot of youth ministry with middle schoolers and high schoolers, but I'm kind of wondering what the daily life, the weekly life of a campus pastor is. Are you running Bible studies typically? Is it lots of one-on-ones like you're talking about? What's your life like as a campus pastor?
Well, I will tell you what it will be like. I'm building things up literally from scratch.
Right.
And so I've come into a situation that, in short, our property was sold where we met with other campus ministries. We can't be on campus. We've got COVID issues, and it's weird coming back in the middle of all of that. And so I'm building up to this. But in short, the number one thing, I really view it as kind of a threefold way. It's something that's been my mantra my whole life. Many people have heard this kind of thinking before. Worship, study, and play. So if students do absolutely nothing, they need to gather together to receive God's gifts.
Right.
It's also important for them to study, and not just study the things of merit, but also to continue to learn. There's a heavy place for apologetics. We are going to be starting kind of a theology on tap kind of rotation at some of the local bars for some of the older students, with an apologetics professor that we have here and myself. Down the line here, we've got some things like that in store, as well as I think it's really important for young people to have a place to just flat out ask their questions.
Yeah.
And so while yes, there's a place for, studying a biblical book and different things like this as you would in a normal church, what we're actually doing is encouraging them right now in our situation, because I don't have a full-time campus ministry building or anything at my disposal, to kind of become a part of the life of the local church and what they do. And so what I'm really doing is trying to supplement those things by giving them a chance to raise their own questions, to kind of take things on topically right now. Obviously things like Afghanistan, to vax or not vax, there's all sorts of issues, medical marijuana and cannabis, and what do we think about all the, there's a lot of things like that kind of come up that their friends talk to them about and that they ponder about. And so I like to make sure that they have plenty of opportunities to kind of have outlets to do that. And so we're going to do a thing this fall here where we're on a weekly basis. They have a chance to raise the questions. And if I don't know the answer and then can't speak eloquently on it off the spot, that it will be on the docket down the line and they can look forward to it. But in short, I encourage all campus ministry workers, if you get to do things on campus right now, do things on campus that will not only be of interest to your LCMS students, but also to their friends and maybe even their unbelieving classmates. And so that you can draw people in. For instance, I love the Book of Concord. I probably wouldn't use that as a Bible study with unbelievers on campus, but you can find different kind of apologetics works talking about biblical worldviews,
Right.
asking some of the basic questions of life, which also teach our own young people kind of how to respond to that. But yeah, worship is central. We are going to be having evening prayer once a week throughout the school year. School years are starting today, so we're just getting kickstarted here at one of the local churches that's a couple miles away. And that's going to be a staple, big or small. I think those rhythms are important for our young people, as it is to really make sure that most churches out there know this. But if you have a young person don't assume that they didn't walk 2 miles to get there or ride their bike, and they maybe could use some help getting there. But make worship, make study. They always say make them substantive. And then I've already talked earlier about the importance of play, being social together, just having a chance to to get out, enjoy God's creation, have fun together. Good old fashioned fun, the kind of things that we all miss just interconnecting with one another. And so to me, those are really the key. Be safe, be smart, and be Lutheran.
What are ways that someone like myself who has a heart for campus ministry, but maybe not the time for it, what are ways that we can help support the LCMU or campus pastors like yourself? Because I love what you're talking about. I love the mission you're talking about.
Well, one of the things you can do there is, well, you're in St. Louis. There are, 3 or 4 different campus ministries at the very least that we have in the St. Louis area. You can find a way to get involved with any of them. You could serve as English as a second language teacher, perhaps for international students. We often talk about adopt a student programs, and we always think of like there's a church and, well, there's some old people here and these old folks can adopt a student and invite them over at Thanksgiving and kind of look after them. Well, I always say, why does it have to be someone old? I mean, I love old people. Old people are awesome, but anybody can adopt a student. They tell us that every young person, period, doesn't matter if they're going to college, not going to college, which is a number that's increasing. The number of young people that are going to college is falling big time. That's a whole nother story. People are at least starting to ask the question, should I even be going to college? Or we're talking about those that are. But the bottom line is that we have plenty of opportunities to be significant others in a mentorship capacity to these young people. All the studies, which I don't ever point out unless they agree with me, but they all say the same thing. Every young person growing up, coming of age, not only needs to have, hopefully a good family life, but they need to have some sort of significant other adult in their life. Maybe it's an Uncle James or an Uncle Andy or an Aunt Sarah. How about that? Maybe it's it could be anybody. You could be just taking an interest in saying, hey, there's one student in my congregation. Hey, I noticed you've been coming on. You get to talk to them for a few minutes and say, hey, you know what? If you come back to church sometime, how about this? I'd be happy to take you out for lunch. That would floor them, that somebody would take an interest. I mean, little things like that, I think, go a long way from the local congregation perspective. But you can also find out where, anybody that's listening can find out on the campus map, the LCMSU chapter map. There's about 225 of them around the country. Go to lcmsu.org and you'll see it front and center there, and you can click on wherever you're near and find a place and maybe ask the local folks what you could do to be helpful, and that'd be a great place to start.
With just about a minute left, and I know this isn't nearly enough time, it's not fair to ask this question with only a minute, but for parents who have students going off to college this year, that maybe they haven't connected with the local campus ministry, any words for those parents or for the students as well that might be listening?
Do it ASAP. Do it now. I will hunt you down and sit on you if you don't. No, please, parents, don't assume. Here's the number one advice. Don't assume anybody knows that your young person is on campus. It's hard enough to find them all necessarily. Everybody assumes, I assume somebody from the congregation told someone. The campus worker, if there is one, just will know it by, just being, omniscient. Such is not the case. And sometimes the young person might be a little shy and doesn't want to reach out on their own. And that also means that if a parent can say, hey, I dropped you off at school. I'm going to come back in 2-3 weeks and go to the local church or campus ministry with you. And sometimes that level of familiarity going to a new place can go a long way too. Bottom line, folks, students, if you're trying to figure out where to get connected parents, congregations, church leaders, go to lcmsu.org and look at that map, get connected. And students, don't be shy. Just go drop them a note. Names are gold to everybody that works on campus ministry, because college is tough. You need Jesus, and we'll help. That's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do.
Amen. Amen. Our guest today, the Reverend Marcus Zill, campus pastor, LCMSU, Arizona. Pastor Zill, always good to talk with you. Thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Absolutely a pleasure.
You're listening to the
James.
You too.
And Mr. Sarah.
You've been listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.